Well, welcome to this explainer. Go ahead, pull up a seat right here by the fire. If you listen closely, you can almost hear that biting, freezing wind howling right outside our doors. It is a bitter chill today, weary traveler. So today, we're stepping into a campfire tale. We're going to explore a truly gritty legend about crossing the absolute ultimate spiritual threshold. We're looking at the story of the Watchman, a figure who literally journeyed way beyond the edges of the known world. Let's just dive right into this and uncover the myth of the Sovereign of the Frost.
Now, just listen to this chilling realization for a second. The old constellations freeze away in the absolute nature of the void. Wow. Right? I mean, this isn't some story about glorious victory marches or golden suns or warm cheers from a crowd. No way. This sets the exact stakes of our journey. Out there in the extremes of the freezing dark, the heavy, totally useless burden of the ego, and honestly, all those comforting little lies we tell ourselves just to sleep at night, they have to be entirely abandoned.
Okay, Section 1. The Icy Seventh Gate, the final stage.
So the Watchman has climbed further than anyone before him, right? He's reached the final stage of spiritual recovery. But, there's no triumphant music playing up here. Look at this stark, really brutal contrast we're facing. On one side, we've got the sublime prison. Now think of this as that mountain peak we're all constantly striving for in society. It's a place filled with the cozy warmth of traditional purpose, just packed with these holy distractions that make us feel super important and safe. But on the other side, we have the honest darkness, the absolute nature of the void. Out here, the biting cold just strips absolutely everything away. I want you to literally put yourself in that freezing wind for a moment and just feel the agonizing chill of leaving all your cozy illusions behind. Because the Watchman, he realized that this harsh, brutal void is actually the only honest reality.
And, what do most travelers actually do when they're faced with that immense, crushing dark? Well, they desperately reach for what the legend calls little torches. These are just false, tiny flames of hope. It's borrowed light used to willfully ignore the brutal, honest truth of existence. Honestly, it makes an old wanderer like me just want to scoff. I mean, it's sheer foolishness to think you can fight the vast eternal void with these pathetic, borrowed little sparks of meaning. To rely on them is, well, it's just choosing to stay blind.
Which brings us to Section 2, Temple of Perpetual Light, a monument of illusion.
So, trudging through all that frost, the Watchman finally arrives at this massive, monolithic structure just looming in the ice. And inside this temple, there are these grand, really imposing symbols, specifically the Mirror of Truth and the Divine Eye. Now, these aren't literal physical objects. They're actually representations of our collective morality. They're the scripted cosmic order, the holy smoke, if you will, designed to keep the human herd in line and, feeling secure. The crucial point here is this. These massive, comforting symbols could no longer sustain a man who had actually stared directly into the honest darkness. Because once you see the void for what it truly is, you instantly recognize these holy structures as nothing more than glittering traps.
Moving into Section 3. Shattering the Mirror, the Ultimate Act.
Right, so this is where the Watchman performs his absolute ultimate act of liberation. The tempo shifts completely now. It all happens in heartbeats. The glass cracks under the heavy weight of honest darkness. He doesn't bow down to this temple. No, he strikes it. The pristine surface of that mirror of truth just splinters, fracturing wildly, entirely unable to hold up against a man who simply refuses to buy into the lie any longer.
Old illusions and holy smoke burn away. The whole temple literally falls down around him. Those ancient structures that once validated every single human step, those massive systems that told all of us exactly who we were supposed to be, they're completely engulfed in a sudden, violent, and fiery destruction. The entire cosmic order is just ripped apart by the bare hands of reality. It is a terrifying, awesome sight.
And then, from the ashes of that grand illusion, slowly settling onto the frozen ground, comes the birth of a dark form of freedom. Really think about the gravity of that for a second. The destruction of the temple wasn't the end of the world. Actually, it birthed a kind of freedom that is found only in the liberating absolute truth of being nothing. No ego, no false sense of universal importance. Just pure, unburdened existence right there in the quiet.
That takes us to Section 4, Birth of Dark Fire, from the wreckage.
So now we enter the aftermath. The temple is just a smoking ruin, but out there in the freezing void, this new, totally terrifying force emerges into the cold. It's called the honest light of the wound that will not heal.
See, the watchman doesn't need those pathetic little torches anymore. From the wreckage, he has ignited his own self-willed dark fire, and it thrives specifically because it needs no external sky, no predictable sun to feed it. It doesn't rely on the outside world to keep burning at all. It burns solely from his own permanent scars, drawing all its fuel from deep within.
So you're probably wondering, how does one actually forge a flame like that? Walk with me through this internal evolution. Step 1. You have to accept the absurdity of life. Just stop demanding that it all makes sense. Step 2. Turn away from the predictable sun. And by that, I mean reject the external validation and all that borrowed warmth of the herd. And finally, step 3. Find sovereign heat within your own heartbeat. This fire survives the brutal ice of the seventh solitude because you forge it from the very void it inhabits. It exists purely and only for your sake. It's the ultimate personal sovereignty.
Section 5. Sovereign of the Frost, the final choice.
I'm looking straight at you now, right through the dying embers of this campfire. Because ultimately, we are all faced with this stark, staggering choice. Do you retreat to the comfort of the village? You know, that borrowed warmth. That means spending your entire life just seeking the approval of the herd, hiding from the howling wind of reality outside the gates? Or do you step out into the cold and become the sovereign of the frost, forging an entirely autonomous path, standing tall as a self-made torch in a world of honest darkness?
To actually become the sovereign requires one singular, massive realization. You have to find joy in the absolute nature of the void. I know it sounds crazy, but embracing the absurdity of life isn't a tragic curse. It's actually a strange, wild, and deeply liberating truth. When you finally, truly accept the reality of being nothing, you are instantly freed from the exhausting, heavy burden of trying to be everything. It's a total game changer.
And so, as the sound of that freezing wind just whips around us tonight, I'm going to leave you with this final, haunting question. Do you retreat to the comfort of the village, or do you brave the icy void to become the laughter in the dark? Our campfire's dying out, my friend. The choice to forge your own autonomous path before the cold takes you is yours and yours alone. Well, thank you for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay warm out there. Or actually, better yet, learn to conquer the cold.